really wanted to create something that was much bigger than just me and much bigger than just making money or running a hedge fund. I wanted to create impact. I wanted to be known as somebody that did something different in the world. I wanted to see if I could do that.
In this video, you will learn from an interview with Vikas, the founder of abillion, a global social app that allows users to review plant-based, cruelty-free, and sustainable products. It was founded in Singapore with 10 million users. In this interview, you will know the reasons why he quit his career as a banker in Wall Street and started his new life as a founder in Singapore. He will also teach us the benefits and challenges of being a startup in Singapore. So now I'm here with the founder of Vikas, the founder of abillion, and I'm happy to have you. It would be nice, if I could know your background, how you ended up becoming a startup founder. From I know you have a financing background, so I'd love to know more about that.
Hi, my name is Vikas Garg. I'm the founder and CEO of abillion. abillion is a worldwide social movement that has attracted now over 10 million people as of this morning, 10.3 million people around the world who are using abillion, our app, our website, to find great, healthier, more sustainable options around the world. That could be products from stores, food, beauty, fashion. It could be food that they're eating at restaurants, and we've created this global community of people around the world that are all using their money to shop more sustainably, to think more sustainably, and to really connect with another group of people who are also embracing this lifestyle and to advocate for businesses to, of course, do a lot better. I started the company 6 years ago, and I don't have a traditional technology background. I actually come from finance. I started working really on Wall Street. I grew up in New York City, and I started working on Wall Street when I was just a kid, and ran with that until my 30s when I decided that I wanted to start abillion. And then I got started by enrolling myself in a coding boot camp, learning a little bit of code, and hiring my first teammates to start building abillion with, and that was 6 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So what made you do that? From a financing background and you started in Singapore, right?
I started the company in Singapore. I was already here. I actually my wife and I and our dog came to Singapore 9 years ago for a totally different career. A local firm here in Singapore hired me 9 years ago or 10 years ago to come out here. I was in California, in Northern California, enjoying my life, and I thought, hey, this is a great next step, next experience. Let's move out to Asia. So we moved out here 9 years ago. Actually, one of my first trips when I moved out here was to Tokyo in May of 2015, and it was a really interesting trip. I was there with a group of investors who were all investors in technology companies, and we went around Tokyo visiting startups. We visited a startup incubation lab. So I have some fond memories of that trip. But that trip and then many others, I would go to Japan every 2-3 months, usually to meet investors or to meet some of our counterparties. We had a small office there. And what I always found was whenever I met with someone Japanese, and I told them, we talked about going out to lunch or dinner, and I said, hey, cool, I'm vegan, so as long as we can find something that's vegetarian or vegan, that's great. They would be very confused, and often it meant that we would go to an Indian restaurant, or we would find some vegetarian restaurant or vegan restaurant, and then we would go there and eat falafel. And I was like, why am I in Tokyo? Why am I in one of the coolest cities in the world? Why am I in one of the most trendy places to eat food in the world, and I'm eating Indian food? Right? I could eat Indian food anywhere else, right? I want to eat amazing Japanese food. So that was one of my first experiences that I think when we first started developing abillion, I remember that experience. I said, if we could create a place where anyone in the world could go and find the best places to eat, but then find great, healthy, green, vegan food, that would be amazing. How do we do that? But a big part of the why and why I ultimately did this is I felt social media was broken. I felt like platforms like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, they were great at connecting people and bringing people together, but they were really bad at the kinds of content that they were showing and promoting to people. If something was violent, if something was hateful, if something created fury and anger in people, there was really a very high chance that it was getting shared, and it was getting shared and broadcast. And this, it felt like the lead into this, it felt like the kind of the pivotal point in this was the 2016 US election when Donald Trump was elected. And then now we've seen all the serial shootings and school shootings and all of these things that are being broadcast on these platforms. And I really felt like, wow, there's so much misinformation. Is it possible instead if we could design algorithms to create social impact, benefit, sustainability? Wouldn't it be amazing if we could build a social media platform where the interactions people had were actually creating positive behavior in society? And so that was really the ethos and the origin of what has now become abillion.
Truly inspirational. I really think that it's a really brave move to quit your financing career, because I'm sure you made a decent amount of money you were in New York and you moved to Singapore. And how did you feel when you started your own company?
It felt very, I think that you feel all the things that when you go off into the unknown. I remember a few years ago I visited Stanford Business School, and in the sort of common courtyard of the business school where the cafeteria and the restaurants are, there's this sort of plaque on the ground, and it's from the founder of Nike. The quote is, "At some point in your life, you'll be confronted by a fork in the road. You can choose the obvious path, the path that you know and you'll probably be really successful at, or you can choose the unknown path where there's a high likelihood of failure, that you don't know what's going to happen, etc. I can't guarantee which one will lead to more success, but I can definitely tell you which one will be more fun." Right? And something like that. I think that that's really been the ethos of the last 6 years, or the learnings of the last 6 years. I got to a stage of my career where every day felt very familiar, and while yes, I made a lot of money, I also felt like nothing I made was good enough. I was always asking for more money. I was always wanting more money. I thought that was what I wanted in the solution for what it was that I was doing, or the sole measure of my success basically became quantified in the amount of money I was earning that was in my bank account. And I started to really feel like, wait, why am I never happy? Every year I'm earning a lot more money, but am I chasing after the wrong things? And are the things that I thought were going to make me feel successful and make me feel very happy in my life when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, and I was making decisions based on wanting to wear nice clothes and have a nice car. Now that I'm 15 years after that, and I've gotten all of those things, I started to feel like, wow, I was chasing all the wrong things. And I really started to think like, wow, well then what does life mean? And what does happiness mean? And I really wanted to create something that was much bigger than just me, and much bigger than just making money or running a hedge fund. I wanted to create impact. I wanted to be known as somebody that did something different in the world. I wanted to see if I could do that. There was a huge amount of anxiety going into pulling the ripcord on the parachute and saying, okay, wow, I'm gonna go and do this, and then only wonderful serendipitous things afterwards. Like the last 6 years has just been one great, incredible challenge. Every day we're one day closer to failure, and every day we're one day closer to success. And is far more fun and interesting than anything I was doing before.
Yes. So like, I know your app has a lot of downloads. I think it was more than 1 million, right?
Over a million
Over
downloads,
a million.
yes.
In which countries do you have like the most users? Is it in Southeast Asia or?
No, not at all. It's
really?
Not at all. We really built from day one. So we've been in Singapore now for the last 6 years. But from day one, we wanted to build a product that could be used by people around the world. It meant that we don't need to necessarily even be localized, but we need to build it in a way that anybody could contribute local content, and then that could be discovered and found, right? So there's always been this idea of abillion, is that the places where we will grow, we cannot be sure of. In fact, that's one of the things that we have learned, is we really cannot predict where we will grow, where the next million users will come from. Last year, for example, Italy went from being 0% of our user base to being 15-20% of our user base in the span of a year in 2022. In 2021, I could not have predicted that would happen. The Spanish-speaking part of the world is a good third of our user base. That's Spain, Mexico, Argentina, Chile. If we think of it broadly as the Latin part of the world, and we include Brazil in that, because Brazil is Brazilian Portuguese, but if we include Brazil in that, that's like a third of our user base, just those countries, right? The Latin countries. But going back to 2017, I would have never predicted that. I would have never said, hey, we need to make the app in Spanish, or we need to have local translation of content. So what we've really leaned into is the unknown and not knowing, hey, where our growth is going to come from, but building something and then thinking about, okay, watching where are the spurts of growth happening, who's in, Japan is a perfect example. Japan hasn't hit that inflection point where it's sort of becoming 1%, 2% of our user base and growing, but when it does, we're going to do more in Japan locally, right? Right now, people in Japan can use our product. So we've now crossed, between web and app, we've now crossed 10.3 million users. Of that, the app is about 10% of our user base, so over 1 million people have downloaded our app and are on the abillion app. And the web is much, much, much bigger than that, in terms of, just because the web, you can really touch so many more people on the internet than you can by trying to get somebody to download an app in an app store.
What sort of connections would you be looking for in Japan?
Yeah, for sure. So we do have a lot of Japanese brands on abillion. It's always surprising to see, but companies that are making noodles, companies that are making cosmetics products, companies that are making sauces. A lot of these companies are already on abillion. So of course, connections to businesses that are trying to create more sustainable products, or who already have vegan products, to people who are creators in Japan, or people who are interested in healthy food, people who are interested in more sustainable living, who can help us grow. So influencers, content creators, people who are interested in new kinds of social media, right? These kinds of people. And of course, investors. We're always keen to meet like-minded investors, people who believe in the mission, who care about the planet. One of our largest investors is a VC fund in Japan. We completed our Series A 2 years ago. We'll be doing our Series B next year.
Do you think Singapore is like a good environment for founders, or?
So Singapore is a pretty good environment for companies. There are a lot of people from around the world who come to Singapore to work for the big multinational organizations that have been set up here, and have been attracted here by Singapore being a great place to work in Asia. I think we used to say Singapore is a great place to work in Southeast Asia. I think today you can safely say Singapore is probably one of the best places to work in all of Asia. You've got people from all over Asia coming here. It does have a high cost of living, so it tends to attract an expat crowd that works at a premium, doing premium jobs for multinationals. As a startup founder, often what you need to do is find scrappy people who have that tenacity and have the work ethic to work really, really hard on complex problems where there aren't quick solutions. And because you've got highly paid foreigners or highly paid locals and working at these multinationals, it is sometimes tricky for startups to navigate that part. But if you're a startup that is founded by Singaporeans or minority owned by Singaporean entities, the government does do a lot to provide support. But you need to have the right kind of framework. You need to be Singaporean started or Singaporean owned in order to qualify for a lot of those grants. So definitely there are more programs created in Singapore than there are in more established economies of the world. You won't see the same level of programs being created in the UK or the US for that matter as there have been in Singapore, and definitely in the region. If you had to choose between Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, this is a good place to be set up. But one needs to be cognizant of, what operating here means if your clients are not here.
So I guess talent-wise and like program-wise, Singapore's like a very nice place to.
Look, it's not the cheapest labor market in Southeast Asia. In fact, it's one of the it's probably the most expensive labor market in Southeast Asia. So that's, again, that's something that you have to ask yourself. If you need to create a team, be in front of that team and that group of people, there might be better places to operate.
I see.
If you need software engineers just to build websites, or you might be able to get by in Vietnam or or Thailand, at a quarter of the cost. It just depends on what it is that you're building. Yeah. We've been very intentional about building our team here, just because we wanted to build a strong culture in our company where everybody really has a deep understanding of each other and can work together on teams. I think for better or worse, we've made some decisions around really being here. And, as we expand, we're always asking ourselves, what's the best thing for the company? I think what we have found is talent. You have to really, in any market, you really have to work hard to find talent.
Right.
And as a startup, it's tough because you can't rest on your laurels. Like, I came from a very privileged sort of background in my career as far as working for blue chip companies where everybody wanted to go and work for those companies. When you create something and nobody knows who you are, right? Unless everybody knows who you are, unless you're a second, third, fourth time founder who has a track record of building and selling companies or creating, amazing things, most people won't know what you are doing, or, and you won't attract those people. And that's one of the hardest things in the beginning, is to really figure out how do you build your business. You can do that anywhere.
We're about to wrap up. Do you have any questions or anything to add?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so
pleasure.
much. It was very insightful.
My pleasure.
Okay.